Welcome back to the Cart Barn Podcast. Today we are joined by Jeremy Gardner, the Executive Director for the Alabama Golf Association. Jeremy stopped by the Cart Barn a week or so ago, and we had a really interesting interview with him.
Yeah, Jeremy, if you think he's young, well, he is. But he's in a position, he's taking over for Andy Priest at the Alabama Golf Association, got all the credentials in the world to take over and keep moving that organization forward, continuing on what Andy Priest started. And he's going to add his own kind of touch to it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how his leadership evolves with the Alabama Golf Association. So why don't we just dive on into Jeremy Gardner, the Alabama Golf Association?
Welcome back to the Cart Barn. Today we're excited to welcome Jeremy Gardner, who's the Executive Director for the Alabama Golf Association. Jeremy, thanks for stopping by the Cart Barn.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, guys.
Hey, so great to have you on, Jeremy. Obviously, you're stepping into some big shoes to fill down there at the AGA. Your predecessor, Andy Priest, left for bigger and better. How's it been since you took over in November?
It's been really good. I would say that first day one came in and we hit the ground running. Andy walking out the door, and we also had a few more staff turnover. I had to fill the previous role that I was in, so we got some new faces coming in, getting them on board and getting them hitting the ground running. I think we found two excellent fits that are going to really take this to the next level, and I think we're in a really good place right now.
Great. Give us a little bit about your background. You're awful young to be sitting in that chair.
Yeah, I made the joke in my interview process that the kind of timeline for me is I wanted to be an ED by 30. So at 33, I'm behind the eight ball here. But yeah, my background is grew up in Denver, Colorado. Played golf at a now defunct Division II program. The year after I graduated, they got the notice from the NCAA. They were in violation of Title IX, and men's golf was on the chopping block. So I like to say that I was one of the last ones that walked through that program. But really, I have a financial degree. I majored in finance and sports industry operations. And really, my intention was to go into the financial sector, and I kind of fell into this. I had a professor in college that thought that I would be a good fit for an internship with the Colorado Golf Association. And I tried it out that summer, fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. Made stops in Southern Nevada, Southern California. And as I like to say, Andy Priest was a very good salesman and got me down to Alabama. And first day I ever stepped foot in Alabama was my first day on the job.
He
Right.
must have been pretty good to get you here from like Southern California or Southern Nevada.
Yeah, really the conversation that we had going back to the pre-Andy Priest days, the AGA really didn't have a whole lot in the junior golf sector. And through the conversations that I had with him, he really said it was a blank slate here and I could kind of build it and frame it however I wanted. And at the time, I think I was 25, 26 years old. And when you have somebody that's potentially going to be your boss say, hey, you have the freedom to kind of do what you want and make this in your own image, that's pretty hard to pass up.
Sure. You certainly did with Youth on Course initiative and a couple other things. You want to kind of touch on that before we get into kind of where you're going with this now?
Yeah, absolutely. Youth on Course has always kind of been near and dear to my heart. I actually worked in the foundation side in Southern California, where really that's where Youth on Course started. So I got the behind the curtains look at it and really how it needed to look. And it's one of those programs that all these golf organizations across the country, their little buzzword is grow the game, grow the game. And I think this is one of the programs that really does that. And it touches sectors within our communities that may not necessarily be exposed to golf simply because of cost. So bringing that to Alabama and really getting the trail to be 100% invested in that from the get-go was a really big plus for us. And we've been doing it now since 2020, so 5 years, and we've either had gold or silver status with Youth on Course National Office every year. So we're one of, I think, 12 to 13 associations that get that honor every year. So we're in a really good place with that program in Alabama.
How have you been able to grow that relatively quickly, and kind of what are the plans to grow it even more?
Yeah, I think going back to the trail, having a really good partner in that program, getting in front of people, having that marketing from that standpoint. Really, these programs, they grow from a grassroots level out. And at the end of the day, it's a really easy sell. When you're talking to somebody that says, "Hey, I'm trying to get into golf, but it's just so expensive," and here I got a program for you that you get access to 2,200 clubs across the globe for $5 or less. I mean, that's pretty tough to turn down. And then on top of that, we've partnered with schools. We've gotten involved with the HSAA. So those kind of touch points there. And then from growth going forward, I think really the challenge that we're having as every association across the country is all these golf courses. It's great. They're very busy. They don't have a lot of available tee times. So when we go to some of these clubs and say, "Hey, do you have the ability to kind of expand this?" Right now, that piggy bank is really full. But at some point in time, these clubs that have really supported us and have really invested in junior golf understand that these kids are the future. They're their future members. They're their future customers. So it may not be this financial boom right now, but at the end of the day, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, there's going to be that emotional attachment that, hey, this club did this for me when I was a kid, and they're going to want to go back.
Do you guys approach clubs? How does it kind of work? Do clubs come to y'all say we might be interested in this?
Yeah, it's both ways. We really, from the targeting from our standpoint, is we really target regions and cities that we feel like would be a good fit, and then kind of build out from there. And then these kind of one-off clubs that, reach out to us and say, "Hey, we've heard about this from so and so, or we've gone to the PGA show and met with Youth on Course. How do we get involved?" And we have a few of those clubs too. But it's a really targeted approach. We want to make sure that we're partnering with people that are in it for the right reasons and really want to invest in the game.
And just to give our listeners a little overview, kids pay $5 or whatever to play, and then it's the difference in greens fee is supplemented by the Youth on Course funding, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we have our AGA Golf Foundation. We have a separate board for that where the individuals that are on that board, they're raising money 365 days a year to support this. So really kind of the behind the scenes look is the junior pays $5, and then on the back end, that round is logged in a tracking system. We get notifications, and then at each quarter, we cut checks to quote unquote make that golf course whole for that round. So last year we paid roughly $40,000 out to these various clubs to compensate them for everything they're doing for Youth on Course.
How much have you seen it grow in your time?
Yeah. So in 2020, obviously it was an interesting year to roll it out. At the end of the year, we had 250 members. And at the end of last year, we had 1,900 members. So it's just exponential growth over the 5 years. And I think we're budgeting and planning for this year right around 22 to 2,300 members. The greedy person in the back of my mind thinks we can probably get to 25 to 28. But it's just going to be a group effort, a team effort. And in my mind, if you're a junior golfer in Alabama and you're not a Youth on Course member, regardless of where you're a member at, I think you're really missing a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Chris?
Well, just looking at what you've done there, but it's been very good, and it's forward thinking to get more youth interested in the game. It's good for the games, good for the clubs, it's good for the public entities, and I think partnering with the schools. I know there's some other entities that kind of trying to bring golf into the schools to for an introduction, but I think that's a great initiative. What moving forward, what have you got plans to elevate and expand the Alabama Golf Association?
Yeah, that's already a work in progress. I want to pat Andy on the back. He really moved this association forward and left a great foundation. Left the house in really good working order. For those of you that have seen our championships over the years, they've really elevated. The experience is top notch. Really, in my mind, we want to continue that to where we're giving these players a USGA experience at every single event that we run. But really, from the mindset of where I'm looking to attack this is competition and high level competition golfers in Alabama. That's roughly probably 10 to 20% of our membership. That's our main touch point. And beyond that, that other 80%, we really haven't had an impact on. So we're really trying to focus on that. One of the things that we just rolled out was our 1-day series where we partnered with the Trail. They're going to be fun scramble, Stableford formats. It can be male, 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 female, 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 really trying to get that mid to high handicapper involved with the AGA, getting our brand and kind of our staff and that type of stuff in front of them, where they don't just see the Alabama Golf Association as, oh, well, I get my handicap index through them. We really have another touch point. So really trying to impact that other 80% that we haven't had that direct interaction with over the last few years.
Interesting. My apologies, but can you expand on that? When did that start? Because I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, we actually just rolled it out. So the schedule is going to be one a month from April through September. They're going to be during the week. There's going to be a gross and net component to those. We're going to play a little shorter yardage to where people are making birdies, people are making eagles. They're really having fun. It's kind of that entry level, taking the intimidation of competition out of it, where, you know, they want to have a little bit of a competitive feedback, but they don't feel like they want to have that state am type experience. So that's really what we're trying to get after with that type of audience there.
I think that's great, especially the Eagles and birdies component, because none of us make enough of those. At least I don't. Chris might. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you sign up for any type of competition, nobody wants to go out there and get beat up and make triples and doubles. And I mean, you remember the round for all the wrong reasons, but if you're out there having fun, you're shooting good scores, more than likely you're going to be coming back.
We just like to see that at the U.S. Open, the doubles and the triples.
Exactly.
So what was Andy's advice, last words to you as the door hit him on the way out?
Yeah, me and Andy had a really good relationship, and I think from my standpoint and his standpoint as well, as the transition was painfully easy, if that makes any sense. We worked hand in hand. I got named in early September. He didn't leave until mid-November. So basically I gotta be in his right pocket for 3 months and really learn from him. But his advice was really, make it your own. Don't try and be me. Because look, at the end of the day, we all have different viewpoints on things, but I think we're in a really good place. From my standpoint, I think I'm in a very advantageous position of where I don't have to come in and reinvent the wheel. There's really good things in place, and I would not be in my wisest to sit here and say, well, let's tear it all down and build it back up, because there's no sense in doing that. We have a really good staff. We have really good volunteers. We have a really good member base. So from that standpoint, keeping the train on the tracks and also just kind of slowly building it out from there. But that was really his advice, was make it your own and don't feel like you have to do anything that in the back of your head, well, what would Andy Priest do? And the other thing at the same time is I have a really good relationship with him, and we both understand that if I have any questions or need to pick up the phone, he's always going to be my first call, and he's always there. So that's always helpful as well.
Oh, so he will take your phone calls, right?
Yeah, he's probably taking more than he wants to admit at this point.
When it comes back disconnected or no longer in service, you'll know it's time to quit bothering him.
Yeah, I mean, I made sure that we kept him on the phone plan long enough to where he could get that transferred over to the other one.
That's funny. Jeremy, do you have any other additional tournaments that you're planning to bring on from a little bit more competitive level?
In year one, no. But we're always looking. We're always kind of evaluating where we're at. I know right now, the big buzzword around the country is adapted golf. Right now, we don't feel like we probably have the internal resources to make that happen. But that's not to say that it's never going to happen. I think we have opportunities to work with our friends at other golf associations to have a dual association type of event like that. Um, and really, it's trying to expand and really understand what our players are after. In my opinion, there's no point in throwing a tournament out there that no one's really asking for. So it's a really give and take process between our membership and our competitive players and our staff and board of what are we looking for? What are we not delivering? And then we take that information back and really frame it and mix it and make it fit into our schedule and make sure that we have the necessary resources to throw at it. And then from there, just make it happen.
Yeah, I think one thing people don't understand, and kind of going back to the adaptive golf, it took a couple years for youth on course to kind of get into place in Alabama. I remember talking to Andy about it before 2020, about 2018. I'd found out about it at the PGA show, and it takes time. You just don't come in and overnight start something like an adaptive golf program or other types of programs like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a list that's sitting in my desk right now of tournament ideas and program ideas that have been in discussion long before I sat in this seat, and they're going to continue to roll. And we got to make sure that one, we have the resources to do it. We're a small staff, and from the other standpoint of how golf courses are so busy right now, and we've been very fortunate from our standpoint of continuing to get support from clubs, but you roll out 4, 5, 6 other events and additional asks to these clubs. At some point, these clubs are going to say, you know what, we can't accommodate this anymore. And then you're kind of in that sticking point of, well, we're going to run this event, but you know what, we don't have a site for it. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Do you guys have trouble getting into new venues? How big of a sell do you have to make to a club to get a tournament on their schedule list?
Yeah, comparative to a lot of other associations across the country, because we all have a very open and honest conversations once a year at our national conference. We've been very fortunate. We haven't had a whole lot of trouble. I'm not going to say that there's clubs that we pick up the phone and it's an automatic yes. Really, the way we attack it is we go through the membership first. If we have a contact point that's a member at the club, we kind of kick the tires with that member of what do you think the feasibility is of hosting XYZ event at your club before we even go to the director of golf or the general manager. Because I mean, at the end of the day, if you have somebody that's inside the building going to bat for you, it's a much easier yes than picking up the phone and having a cold call and saying, hey, I'm so and so from the Alabama Golf Association. I know we've never met, but how would you like to host a tournament?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just knowing your limited staff, I'm not sure how you guys do it. Because I mean, from March 1st on, your guys' schedule is pretty busy, and you've got the Southern Golf Association also that you handle their tournaments. So, kind of take us through that.
Yeah, it's a yearly jigsaw puzzle. So really the staff resources and assets from a scheduling standpoint start in the fall leading up to the next year, where we all sit down as a staff and we have a big Excel spreadsheet of, okay, here's the events we got to cover. How are we going to make this work? And it's really kind of picking and choosing who goes where and how to make that all work. And we got big calendars on our walls, and it's really a lot of moving parts, but at the end of the day, it's a really rewarding process. Um, and even with the new staff members that have come in, when Andy Priest was here, we had a staff continuity that was going back. I was the newest one on staff, and I've been here 8 years. So we kind of knew how it all worked. But now with new staff members, it's a lot more give and take, and they come from different organizations and they bring different ideas. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to pick and choose things from different organizations and see how it fits with us and see if we can elevate some things. But yeah, we got a staff of 7, and we're bringing in 6 interns this year. So 13 when we're fully staffed, and we got to make it work somehow. And every year we kind of look back at the end of the year and say, we made it happen, but not really sure how.
Yeah, we're in 14 countries and 47 states, this podcast. So a lot of the listeners maybe don't know how many events we're talking. Would you give a kind of high level breakdown of the AGA events and the Southern Golf Association events that the numbers?
Yeah. So we run 30 championships from the AGA side. We run 12 USGA qualifiers. Throw in the new one-day series, that's 8 events. We run 8 junior tour events, 6 state am qualifiers, 16 Southern amateur qualifiers, the Southern am, and then the Southern juniors. So when it's all said and done, you're probably looking at between 60 to 80 events.
That's all?
Yeah. And we're looking for more too.
I think you got to add some January, early February events in there to just to keep your staff busy.
Yeah, I mean, well, the 2025 season's already rolling. We've already ran 1 ladies 1-day scramble. And then 3 of our guys this past weekend were down at the coast running a junior tour event at Lakewood. So we're already rolling.
Yeah.
What are the interns' first questions when they kind of apply, and how do you kind of tell them that it's pretty busy?
Yeah, for lack of a better word, we almost try and scare them. When I was going through the intern interview process in my previous role, me and Brian kind of took that on. The first conversation we had is we almost tried to paint it as doom and gloom of you're going to be living out of a van and you're never going to see home, and you're just going to come home to put new clothes in your suitcase, and you're going to be gone for 3 months. And I mean, at the end of the day, and then once we kind of give them that doom and gloom conversation, it's how does that sound to you? And it's funny. They're all like, oh, that sounds wonderful. And in the back of your head, it's like, I don't know how wonderful that really sounds, but I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But really, I think from the standpoint of kind of how we frame it to these interns is we try and make sure that they completely understand it. But it's a lot of give and take. The last thing we want somebody to do is accept an internship, come in the door, and then 2-3 weeks in, they quit because they're like, this isn't anything like you told them. So it's really from that perspective. And then over the years, we've added additional bodies. So that travel schedule for some of these interns has kind of eased up a little bit. But really, when you look at it, they're here for 3 months, most of them. And out of those 90 days, they're probably on the road for 70 of those. So it's a very travel intensive internship. And we kind of call it the eye test. In 2 to 3 weeks, you can kind of look every intern in the eye and you can kind of see if this is really what they want to do or not after those 2 or 3 weeks, because you can tell if you've lost them or not.
What kind of feedback do you get from the interns on their way out?
Almost all of them is very positive feedback. Most of from the operations standpoint, they want to get involved in golf. They like seeing the different avenues of golf, because really, when you think about employment in golf, the first thing that kind of comes to your mind is golf pro, golf course superintendent, those type of things. And they may not necessarily know about this potential avenue. But really, I think the main thing that we get back from interns is one, it's a paid internship, and they're like, paid internships are really hard to find in today's day and age. And 2, they really appreciate the responsibility and kind of the hands-on aspect of this internship, of where they come in the door, they're treated like a full-time staff member from the go. They're given responsibilities, they're given duties. It's not, go sit upstairs and get me coffee when we call you to get coffee. It's not that type of internship. There's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things that we throw on these guys' plates, that there's expectations, and they understand that and appreciate it.
Do you tell them to leave their golf clubs at home when they walk in the door?
Yeah, that's the old saying around here, is we ask them what the AGA stands for, and they're all proud when they say the Alabama Golf Association, and you kind of look at them with a smile and say, nope, it's ain't golfing anymore.
I think if you want to play golf, the worst industry to be in is the golf industry, because
Right.
Not a lot of it.
Yeah, I think the only thing my golf clubs do anymore is collect dust.
That was my next question. When's the last time you played?
The 100-hole hike last October would be the last golf I've played, but the last true 18-hole round, too long ago to probably even think of at this point. I bet you it's been at least 24 months.
Do you miss it?
I miss aspects of it. Kind of back in my day, I wouldn't say I was a good player, but I could get it around a little bit with mid to high 70s. And now when you go out and play, when you got dust on your clubs and you haven't hit a golf ball in a while and you're starting to hit shots that, you never thought would be in your bag, it gets a little frustrating. But at the end of the day, you're like, I play once every 3 years. So the expectations have flown out the door.
Yeah, I had people years ago saying, why didn't you become a club pro or get in the golf business? And I said, man, I'd seen that job and I didn't want it. So
yeah, if you like golf and like playing golf, don't work in it.
that's right.
So what, having been there, I assume the transition to Andy's chair was relatively smooth.
Yeah. We kind of really, the only thing that I guess didn't really have the intimate knowledge of was kind of the behind the scenes financial aspect of it. Andy and Donna on our staff really took care of the financials. But Andy was a really good and unique leader in that he didn't kind of govern from this ivory chair up here and kind of dictate down to us. He let us all get down in the mud with him. And that's really the kind of the same intention of how I'm going to run this thing is we're all going to have job duties and kind of intermingling tasks. And in my mind, the job title really doesn't matter to me. I'm going to still do the same things that I've always done. I'm going to go to events. I'm going to mark golf courses. I'm going to interact with our members. The last thing that I want to do sitting in Andy's chair is never get out and see our membership and that type of thing. I just don't think that's the right way to do it. And the other thing is, I don't want to ask anyone on our staff, that goes for full-time staff all the way down to our interns, to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So if it's 115 degrees out there and 5 o'clock in the morning and we're marking a golf course, I'm going to be right out there with them as well. I just think that's the right way to do things.
Yeah. Kind of the same philosophy I had with my staff when I worked in the newspaper. I didn't ask them to do anything that I hadn't done 1,000 times before them. I think they respect that aspect of it lots of times.
Yeah. And from our standpoint, as we mentioned before, we're a smaller staff. So there is expectations that I'm going to have to pick up some slack on the tournament side as well, because we don't have a staff of 20 to 30 where we're going every which way. There's times that I'm going to have to pitch in and do some things that I did in my previous role. That it just is what it is. At the end of the day, we got to get things done, and whatever it takes to get it done, we're going to do it.
Yeah. Jeremy, you mentioned not recreating the wheel, and I think that's smart. I think Andy certainly elevated the AGA. Not that it was in a bad shape, but it's certainly elevated. But there's always things evolve. Are there any things that you've kind of identified, maybe social media or whatever, that needs to continue to kind of evolve and be elevated, or kind of status quo?
Yeah, I call it the Kodak effect. When you think of a company like Kodak or Blockbuster or those type of companies that, back in the day, they were big time companies, and then they've just gone away over the years. So I think each year that you go through and operate a business, you kind of have to look yourself in the mirror and have some self-reflection of where are we going? What are our pain points? What are our risk points? And kind of identify those year over year of saying, you know what, we have to continue to adapt. Social media, for example, I don't think you can ever have enough social media presence because it's continuing to go in different directions. I'm going to sound really old when I say this, but that's why we hire interns that are in their early 20s to mid 20s, because they know what's cutting edge. They know what's hot. They know what's coming down the road that I may not know. So really that's where we lean on these communications and marketing interns of tell us the direction of where we're headed, and let's lean into it. Let's get creative with it. So marketing, I don't think you can ever lean into marketing enough. And then really every year it's just that self-evaluation of how can we continue to adapt with the ever-changing landscape of business and golf. I don't think anyone really, when we were going through the process of COVID, thought that golf would be affected like it has been. And it's those same things that are coming down the road where who knows what's going to happen in 2025. Something may happen, or we may need to change course, but you have to be open and honest with yourself internally of how can we continue to make this grow. But But that's really my philosophy, and our entire staff's philosophy is every year we sit upstairs and I call it the mud meeting, where we sit upstairs all day long and we say, okay, where do we need to go and what changes and adaptations do we need to have? So when we look back on this 3 to 5 years from now, we're not obsolete. And that's across the board in every business. Everyone's having those conversations.
Yeah.
When Andy announced he was leaving, did right away you were going to interview for it or wanted to take a shot at it?
I had some conversations with my wife first and foremost, because obviously when you elevate a chair, there's more time commitment, there's more things involved with that. I don't do anything unless my house is on board. I'll put it that way. I've had some opportunities at other associations over the last few years that I just didn't feel like were the right fit. I really liked what we were doing here, the direction we were going. And then I had the conversation with our staff of how do you feel about this? Because I mean, at the end of the day, the carryovers from Andy to myself, if they weren't on board with me, I mean, what are we really doing here? So I had closed door, honest conversations with them of, okay, how do you feel about this? How would you feel about this? And then after those probably 3 to 4 weeks of worth of conversations, and I said, you know what, it's time to throw my name in the hat and have those conversations with the search committee and our board of directors. And at the end of the day, I guess it worked out and they like what I had to say. And here I sit.
What was the craziest question you got asked in your interview process?
You know, it's always interesting to interview with people that they know everything you've done over the last 9 years. So I guess one of the questions that I got asked is what's the biggest tournament that you've been involved with in the last 5 years? So answering that question, it's like, well, you all know that answer, but I guess I'll expound on it. It's the Southern Amateur. So those type of conversations and questions, and you know, you got kind of those awkward giggles when someone would throw a question out to you where they, in the back of their mind, they knew the answer, but it's like, okay, let's go through the motions here and have those conversations. But yeah, I acknowledge it. They all acknowledged it. The first conversation we had, going through the process of, hey, you all know me, I all know you. Like, let's just have a conversation. Let's not make this anything that it's not. But yeah, it's a little awkward when you interview with people that you've known for nearly a decade and they know everything about you. They know your family. But yeah, it was an interesting process, but I think it was also a learning process too, where it was a great opportunity to kind of have our board all in one place, a captive audience, where it was a lot of give and take, a lot of conversations of where do you see this going from your perspective and how can we build on that? So that's really, I think, was the best kind of thing that came out of this whole process. Was I think from my standpoint and our board and executive committee standpoint is we're all on the same page and we're all rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, have you gotten well, Andy did it this way?
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few. But at the same time, I think that the comments that I've gotten the most is, hey, you're the new Andy. It's like, well, you know, I'm sitting in Andy's chair, but I may not necessarily be the new Andy. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be that aspect. And look, Andy did a phenomenal job here and he left me great things to work with. So I would be a fool not to use that. And when people say, hey, this is how Andy did things, or this or that or the other, I mean, I don't take that personally. I take it as a compliment because at the end of the day, I was involved with that staff. I was involved with those ideas. So Andy was at the forefront of all of it, kind of leading the charge. But at the end of the day, everyone in this building was also part of making that magic happen. So I don't take it as you know what, kind of a slight of, oh, well, Andy would have done it this way. It's really kind of a compliment to everything we've accomplished. And I just want to continue to build on everything that Andy's done.
Yeah.
I think one thing when I was taking over for a guy, the sports editor that had been there for years and years, is I didn't want the level of the quality to slip under my watch. And that kind of just spurred me, you know, to work a little harder, to work, you know, I just didn't want to see it go down under my watch. I'm sure that's kind of also in your mindset too.
Yeah, I even before I took this job, and it was kind of my two famous quotes that Andy always used on my behalf as well. As one, we have to continue to fill the funnel. At the end of the day, your funnel's big up top. You got to fill it with potential members, potential golfers, and as they trickle through, what you come down to at the very bottom, that's going to be your competitive golfer. So we need to continue to pile on top of that funnel. And the second one is, if you're not growing, you're dying. So we have to continue to get creative, find new ways to grow this thing from a membership standpoint, from a tournament standpoint, from a staff standpoint. As we mentioned before, we got a lot going on, but there's still additional days on the calendar that we can continue to do things and grow things and really impact a greater amount of people across the state. The greedy person in me says, I want to make the Alabama Golf Association one of the greatest golf associations in the country. And in order to do that, it's going to take hard work and effort and total staff buy-in. And that's what we have to continue to do here.
Well, I wouldn't say that's greed. I would say that's a good aspiration to have. Part of the reason Greg and I started this podcast was just because to document all of the golf history that there is in this state. Mm-hmm. You know, we are feel very fortunate that some of the people that we've been able to have on so far, and some of the stories that we've told, and certainly reflecting back on, you know, Sam Farlow and what you know, the stories that he told, and the Hudson brothers, and there's just, and I don't want to not start mentioning because I'll leave someone out, but there's been some really good ones, and we've got some more lined up. But you're talking about pilot that filling that funnel and have it. You just think about all of the golf related companies and the golf related people that from this state that have played or are playing at such a high level right now for a relatively small state is, I think, very interesting, and I think a lot of that goes back to the Alabama Golf Association and what they do. So it's, I think, documenting this and continuing to showcase what we have is important.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the size of the state of Alabama. I think pound for pound, we're one of the strongest golf states in the country.
Agreed.
You look at the U.S. National Development Team. We have 2 junior golfers from the state of Alabama on that team. The only other states on there that have multiple players is California, Texas, and Florida. Mm-hmm. And you look at the population aspect, Alabama doesn't fit with those other 3 states, but there we are. Yeah. Same thing with Nick Dunlap, Gordon Sargent. I mean, guys that have come through that are making massive impacts. So, I mean, we're doing things the right way and we're producing top level talent. So we would be fools not to pat ourselves on the back and say, you know what, look at Alabama. They've got a lot of good things going on. And that's not just the Alabama Golf Association. That's our member clubs. They've completely bought into everything we're doing here. It takes a total team effort. The PGA section, everyone's involved in this, and you've seen the return over the last 10, 20, 30 years of what this state has accomplished. Alabama is a golf state.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the greater metropolitan area of Atlanta, and they've got more people in that metroplex than the whole state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. And you look at, like you said, Tyler Watts and who we've had on the podcast, and Nick and Gordon, but then you go back over a period of time, guys playing on the tour and guys that are still playing on the tour. So it's very much a golf state.
And I mean, it's not even just the younger players either. You look at the senior level players. I'll use Robert Nelson. He's making deep runs in USGA championships. I mean, you look at USGA leaderboards and it doesn't take long to scroll through it before you find somebody from Alabama that's making an impact out there. Sure. So it's from junior golf all the way through of we have top level talent here.
Going forward, what are some of the challenges you're facing to kind of maintain that positive upward trend? And are most of the clubs in the state members of the AGA?
Yeah, for the most part. Really, the upward trend is continue to expand the tournament program and really our membership. When you look at our membership going back to 10, 15, 20 years ago, kind of when you thought of state golf associations, it was, oh, that was where I get my handicap. And as you kind of go on into the future, just the mindset of a lot of people have kind of changed to where, what additional benefits do I get besides a handicap index? So we have to continue to expand that and say, well, in addition to that handicap index, you get playing access to top level clubs, you get competitive aspects, we go on member trips, just adding that benefit to what does it mean to be an AGA member, to continue to expand that, where, somebody that plays golf maybe once or twice a year, that's not an AGA member and says, you know what, well, I don't necessarily need a handicap index. Well, we still want them to be a member, and it's what speaks to them to become a member, and how do we get those individuals involved with us? We've done a really good job in getting members from private. How do we get the public golfer involved? How do we get those type of individuals that may not have ever played an AGA championship? How do we get them involved? And that's where those ideas and those ways to get creative really come into play.
Yeah, I think maybe we should expound a little bit. You don't have to be a country club member to become a member of the AGA. How does a Muni guy kind of get involved in? You've got to be an AGA member to play in certain AGA events, correct?
Correct. Yeah. There's various different ways you can do it. If you're a public golfer, you can go to your club that's a member of the AGA, sign up for a membership that way, and you get all the benefits of being an AGA member. The other way that you can, that's probably the easiest way that we've rolled out in the last few years, is you go online and you become an e-club member. And we've also transitioned that to a subscription service. We all have subscription services with pretty much everything we do in today's day and age, where you fill out the form, you check a box, and it just automatically rolls over and renews. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible to become an AGA member. And we're also trying to expand that beyond just the play of golf and handicap membership and those types of things. How can we include discounts? How can we include travel type things where you're getting access to hotels and airline miles and those type of things, where we're really becoming a quote unquote member services organization, not just necessarily a golf association.
Jeremy, I guess I'd ask you, is there anything that we haven't touched on that the listeners might be interested in?
I'm really just excited to get our new staff in front of all our players. I think they're going to be excellent fits. So Hall Upshaw came from the American Junior Golf Association, the AJGA. So he brings that type of mindset of really kind of elevating that player experience on that high level competition side. And then JD Vinostal, he came from Tennessee, originally from Idaho. He had 2 boat ride internships with the Tennessee Golf Association. And then he also has experience with the PGA section out in Arizona. So just bringing those organizations together, bringing them in-house and elevating everything we have here. But really, the other thing that I probably wanted to touch on is the men's state amateur is going to be hosted by the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail for the first time ever. So they're really excited about that. They're going to roll out the red carpet. Capitol Hill is going to be a fantastic host. And I think we're really going to showcase that side of golf, the public side of golf, and that trail. Trail's a very large entity in this state. They drive really a lot of the golf tourism in this state. So to have our state amateur there on the men's side is going to be a real plus. And then the other thing that we've gone back to change is the men's state amateur going forward is going to be a walking only event. So at Shoal Creek, it was walking only. We really like the look of it. Our board loved the look of it. So we're going to roll with that, where we feel like that adds that extra elevation to that event, where it's walking only. You're going to have caddies out there with player names on the back of the caddy bib and really trying to make this look like a tour event.
That's outstanding. That's a great idea.
Uh-huh.
Better start getting in shape now, guys, if you're gonna tee it up.
Yeah, it's going to be a big boy golf course. When we were running the yardages on our site visit a couple months ago. I think we came out to a final yardage with a little over 7,400 out there. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of golf.
You'll have it running so firm and fast. It'll play 6,700 yards for those guys that can hit it.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that we face with the Southern AM. We go and set up these golf courses at 7,700 yards, and it's just such a different game anymore. You have 500-yard par fours, and it's not enough. We had, I think it was a couple years ago at the Southern AM, it was like almost 700-yard par five, and we had guys hit mid-iron in on their second shot. It's like, it's just a different game.
And we can get into the roll back the ball discussion another time.
I'll leave that to the USGA.
Good answer. Yeah.
Well, great, Jeremy. Been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's always good to get our brand and kind of what we do out in front of an audience and really answer some questions. But this is my no shame sales pitch that if you have not renewed your AGA membership at this point, get it going, because we got tournaments that are opening up here in about a week and a half that you get it renewed now. That registration process can be a whole lot easier when you're trying to do it.
Yeah, it's very easy. But congratulations on your role. Look forward to seeing you at some events later on this year. And thanks again for stopping by the Cart Barn.
Absolutely.
Chris will see you at the old guys events.
Yeah,
I will see you in a coverage capacity.
Yeah, I have no interest in playing a 7,700-yard golf course anymore.
Yeah, neither do I. I don't have that in the bag as well.
Yeah.
Good deal. Appreciate your time, Jeremy.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Have a good week.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
I want to thank Jeremy Gardner for stopping by, the new executive director of the Alabama Golf Association, giving us kind of an update on where things are at and where things are going with that organization. So again, thanks, Jeremy, for joining us.
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you very much. As a person that plays in some Alabama Golf Association events, appreciate everything that those guys do and the level of professionalism that they bring to the events that we play in. Greg, we're getting into full golf swing season, some major PGA events just around the corner, so lots coming up to talk about in the coming weeks. And we appreciate everyone stopping in to the Cart Barn this week. Catch us next week for another episode of the Cart Barn Podcast.